June is not just another month on the gardening calendar. For most American gardeners, June is the last window, the absolute final opportunity to get certain crops in the ground and still pull a real harvest before the first frost shuts everything down. Miss this window, and you are not just missing out on fresh vegetables. You are handing that money straight back to the grocery store, $1 at a time, all the way through fall. I have been doing this for over 25 years, and I am going to show you the 9 crops that seasoned gardeners are quietly direct sowing right now, while everyone else is still standing in the garden center aisle, confused about what to plant next. Stay with me through this entire video, because crop number 5 is the one most gardeners completely skip, and it is the single biggest regret I hear every single fall, without exception. The financial cost of missing that window will shock you. Before we go any further, drop your U.S. state or your USDA hardiness zone in the comments below right now. Tell me where you are gardening. Zone 7 in North Carolina, Zone 9 in Arizona, Zone 5 in Minnesota. It matters. It changes everything about what I am going to tell you today. Every zone that comes in helps this channel build a real picture of where American gardeners are actually growing food across this country. Zucchini and summer squash. Let me start with the one crop that will make you look like a professional gardener the fastest. Even if you have never grown anything successfully in your life, zucchini and summer squash are the most reliably productive vegetables you can put in the ground in June. Direct sow them right now, and in 45 to 60 days, you will have more squash than you know what to do with. That is not an exaggeration. That is the biological reality of this plant. Here is what the garden center does not tell you. Those sad little squash transplants they sell in plastic 6-packs in May are not necessary. Zucchini and summer squash do not want to be transplanted. They do not like root disturbance. The moment you stick a transplant into warm June soil, you are giving up a significant advantage. Direct sown seeds in June soil, sitting at 65 degrees or warmer, will germinate in 3 to 7 days and often catch up to transplants and sometimes surpass them within 3 weeks. Plant directly and do not overthink it. The varieties you want depend on your situation. Black Beauty is the old standard, reliable and productive in every zone from 3 to 10. Costata Romanesco is an Italian heirloom with extraordinary flavor, dense, nutty, and far superior for cooking compared to the bland grocery store zucchini your family has been tolerating for years. For compact raised beds, look for Patio Star or Bush Baby. For the fastest harvest window, early prolific straight neck is consistently one of the most productive performers in warm soil, and it performs well in zones 3 through 10. Plant seeds an inch deep, 3 feet apart, in full sun, and I mean full sun, not filtered light, not partial shade. These are heat-loving summer crops, and they want every minute of direct sunlight available to them. Work an inch of compost into the soil before sowing. Water them in well, then step back. The biggest mistake people make with zucchini is over-fertilizing with nitrogen. After the plant is established, you will end up with enormous leaves and almost no fruit. Feed the soil before planting, not after. Let the plant do what it wants to do, which is produce fruit at an almost alarming rate. Check your plants every single day once they start producing. A zucchini that is 4 inches long today will be a 12-inch club by tomorrow morning. If you are not paying attention, an overgrown zucchini loses flavor and signals the plant to slow down fruit production. Harvest small and harvest often. That is the rule with this crop, and following it is the difference between 8 weeks of continuous harvest and a plant that peaks early and shuts down. One more thing I want to cover on zucchini that nobody talks about enough: powdery mildew. By August, Almost every zucchini plant in America looks like someone dusted it with flour. This is normal, and it is inevitable. It does not mean your plant is dying. It means your plant has been producing hard for 8 weeks and is starting to wind down. Do not panic. Do not spray it with chemicals, and do not pull it out the moment you see mildew. Keep harvesting until the plant tells you it is finished. You will know. Zones 3 through 5 get seeds in the ground this week in early June. Zones 6 through 9, you have flexibility through mid-June. Zones 9 and 10, you can push into early July, but June direct sowing gives you the best summer production window. Now, let me talk numbers, because this is where June planting gets genuinely interesting. A single healthy zucchini plant in peak production will give you 3 to 5 lobes of squash per week over a harvest window of 6 to 8 weeks. That is 20 to 40 lobes of squash from one plant. Organic zucchini at a grocery store or farmer's market runs anywhere from $2 to $4 a pound, depending on your region. One plant from one seed packet that cost you $3 can generate $40 to $160 in equivalent grocery store value. Plant 3 to 4 plants, and you are looking at over $400 of produce from a $10 seed investment. Do that math slowly. Bush beans and pole beans. If there is a more satisfying and financially rewarding crop to direct sow in June, I have not found it in 25 years. Beans do not want to be started indoors. They do not want to be coddled in greenhouse trays. They want warm soil, 60 degrees or above, and they want to be seeded directly in the ground where they are going to grow. June gives you exactly that. The soil is warm, the air is warm, and germination happens fast, usually in 5 to 10 days under good conditions. Let me talk about the two categories separately, because they serve different purposes in a June garden, and the harvests come at different times. Bush beans are your fastest return. Provider is the variety I recommend first to anyone because it genuinely earns its name. It germinates in poor soil, tolerates heat, resists common bean diseases, and produces a heavy flush of 4 to 5-inch pods 50 to 55 days after sowing. That is mid to late July, depending on your zone. Blue Lake 274 is another classic, widely available and consistently productive. Contender is worth growing if you are in the south or anywhere with summer temperatures regularly pushing 90 degrees. It was bred specifically to handle that heat without dropping blossoms. Pole beans take a bit longer, 60 to 70 days typically, but the total yield from a well-set-up trellis is substantially higher than bush beans per square foot of garden space. Kentucky Wonder has been grown in American gardens for over 150 years because it works. Rattlesnake is another heirloom variety that produces prolifically in hot weather and has the added visual interest of purple streaking on the pods. Vortex is a French fillet-style pole bean, thinner pods, exceptional flavor, and it stays tender longer than most varieties, which means more grace period between harvest checks. Now, let me break down what beans actually mean financially. A 10-foot row of bush beans, which takes up almost no space, will produce 8 to 12 lobes of fresh beans over the course of the harvest window. Fresh beans at a grocery store are running $2 to $3 a pound right now. That is $24 to $36 of produce from a strip of garden smaller than a standard sofa. Pole beans on a trellis in that same 10-foot run will produce even more over a longer season, sometimes 15 to 20 lbs total. Succession planting is the real move with bush beans. Sow a row now. Sow another row 3 weeks from now and another 3 weeks after that. You extend your harvest window from one compressed flush in July into a continuous supply through September. Do not fertilize beans with nitrogen. I want to be very clear about this. Beans fix their own nitrogen from the air through root bacteria. Adding nitrogen fertilizer suppresses that natural process and gives you all leaves and almost no pods. Plant bean seeds 1 inch deep, no more. Water thoroughly at planting. Then give them a day or two before watering again, unless conditions are extremely dry and hot. Shallow daily watering keeps the top inch wet and the deep roots dry, which is the opposite of what you want. Once you see the first true leaves emerging, these plants are essentially self-sufficient in most summer soils. Sweet corn. Let me tell you something that every gardening book seems to bury in a footnote, but that every serious home gardener needs to understand up front. Corn does not transplant. Period. You cannot start it indoors and move it out the way you might with tomatoes or peppers. The root system of corn is extremely sensitive to disturbance in those early weeks. Transplanting sets it back so hard that you lose most or all of the timing advantage you were trying to create. That is why June direct sowing is not just convenient. It is the correct and only practical method for growing corn at home. June soil, sitting at 65° or above, is exactly what corn seed needs to germinate reliably. You will typically see emergence in 7 to 10 days in warm June conditions. In the right zone, corn planted in early June is ready for harvest in late August, just in time for Labor Day cookouts. In zones 5 and 6, aim for the first week of June. In zones 7 through 9, you have flexibility through mid-June and can even push into late June in the warmest regions. The varieties matter here, and I want to give you the actual names. Peaches and Cream is a classic bicolor variety. Kernels are a mix of yellow and white, extremely sweet, and it matures in 70 to 80 days, which makes it perfectly timed for a June sowing in most zones. Silver Queen is the standard white sweet corn, matures in 92 days, and has a reputation for exceptional sweetness and tender skin. For shorter seasons in zones 3 through 5, Early matures in just 63 days and is one of the most cold-tolerant sweet corn varieties available. Now, here is the piece of information about corn pollination that garden centers absolutely never tell you. And getting this wrong will cost you a full season. Corn is wind-pollinated. Each silk strand on an ear of corn must receive a grain of pollen from the tassels above. If you plant corn in a single long row, which is how most beginning gardeners do it, the pollen drifts sideways on the wind and misses most of the silks. You end up with ears that are half filled or nearly empty. Plant corn in blocks instead. A minimum of 3 rows side by side, 3 to 4 feet apart within the block. Seeds 8 to 12 inches apart within each row. A block allows the tassels above to rain pollen down on the silks below from multiple directions, and you get fully filled ears every time. The financial case for sweet corn is different from other vegetables on this list. It is not primarily about the per-pound price. The real value is in what you get. Corn harvested and eaten within hours of picking at the absolute peak of its sugar content before it converts to starch. That experience is completely unavailable at any price from a grocery store. Commercially harvested corn is picked days before you buy it. The sugars have already begun converting. What you grow and eat the same day is a fundamentally different food, and that difference is what home growing actually buys you. Give corn full sun. Amend the soil with compost before planting and water consistently, especially during tasseling and ear fill. When inconsistent moisture leads to incomplete kernel development, I want to stop here for 1 second and ask you something honest. Where else are you getting this information? Think about that seriously. Not the glossy photos in a seed catalog. Those are built to sell you seeds. Not the teenager working the garden center in May who is reading from a tag on the pot. Not a YouTube video telling you to buy a specific brand of fertilizer they are being paid to promote. Nobody at your local garden center sat down with you this spring and told you exactly which varieties to grow, which block spacing actually works for corn pollination, how to calculate the financial return on a row of pole beans, or what the real window is for winter squash. They did not tell you because that conversation does not sell product. This information only comes from 25 years of actually growing these crops, making the mistakes, and learning what actually works in real American gardens. If you are still watching and you have not subscribed yet, I genuinely need you to do that right now. Not for me, for you. YouTube's algorithm only consistently delivers content from channels it recognizes you follow. If you are not subscribed, it is going to stop putting this channel in your feed, and you are going to miss information that directly affects what you plant and what you harvest. Hit subscribe. It takes 2 seconds, and it costs you absolutely nothing. Cucumbers. If you lost your spring cucumber crop to disease, to a late frost, or, honestly, just because you got busy and missed the planting window, do not mourn it. June is an excellent time to direct sow cucumbers, and I would argue that in many regions, June-sown cucumbers outperform early transplants. Here is why. Cucumbers are frost-sensitive vines that want warm soil and warm nights. When you rush transplants into the garden in late April or early May, those plants sit cold and stressed for weeks while the soil temperature climbs to where they actually want to be. A seed direct sown into warm June soil skips all of that. It germinates in 3 to 7 days and starts growing immediately with no transplant shock and no stress. By the time a May transplant has fully recovered from its early cold exposure, a June direct sown cucumber has often nearly caught up. The varieties I want you to plant in June specifically. Marketmore 76 is the standard slicing cucumber. Disease-resistant, produces in 60 days, and widely available in most zones from 4 through 11. If you have had issues with cucumber beetles or bacterial wilt in past seasons, and many gardeners in zones 5 through 8 have, look for County Fair, which was bred specifically for disease resistance and shows much better performance in regions where wilt pressure is high. For pickling cucumbers, National Pickling and Calypso are both excellent, fast-producing, and compact enough for smaller gardens. If you want a burpless variety that your family actually wants to eat raw, Sweet Success and Diva are both smooth-skinned, nearly seedless, and they produce reliably from June sowings. Financially, cucumbers are one of the clearest cases for home growing I can make. Organic cucumbers at a grocery store are running $2 to $4 each in most markets right now. A well-grown cucumber vine on a trellis will produce 20 to 30 cucumbers over the course of a season. That single vine represents $40 to $120 in grocery store equivalent produce. Plant 4 to 6 vines, which takes about 10 linear feet of trellis, and you are looking at $200 to $400 of cucumbers from one section of your garden. Grow cucumbers on a trellis. This is not optional advice. Vertical growth dramatically improves air circulation around the leaves, which is the single most effective thing you can do to reduce fungal disease pressure, specifically powdery mildew and downy mildew, the 2 diseases that kill cucumber plants in late summer. Plants on a trellis are also dramatically easier to harvest, and you will find cucumbers far more reliably than you would in a pile of ground-trailing vines. A simple 6-foot cattle panel section, T-posts, or even a wire fence works perfectly. Plant seeds 1 inch deep, about 12 inches apart, and give them full sun. Water at the soil level, not overhead. Wet foliage is the leading cause of fungal disease on cucumbers, and water deeply and less frequently, rather than shallowly every day. Winter squash and pumpkins. This is the one. Of all 9 crops on this list, this is the entry that I receive the most fall regret about every single year without fail. Every October when someone sends me a photo of a half-developed butternut squash that did not fully cure before the frost, or when someone comments that their jack-o'-lanterns were the size of softballs instead of the full-size pumpkins they wanted. The answer is almost always the same. They planted too late. They missed the June window. Let me explain why this one is so time-critical in a way that will stay with you. Winter squash and pumpkins are not fast crops. They require a frost-free growing season of 80 to 120 days, depending on the variety. That growing period starts from the day you put the seed in the ground. Now, count backwards from your average first frost date. If you are in Zone 6, your average first frost is somewhere around mid-October. 100 days back from mid-October puts you at mid-June. That is your absolute last planting date, not your ideal one. Your ideal planting date in Zone 6 is the first week of June, or even late May. If you are in Zone 5, your first frost comes in late September to early October, which means your window for long-season squash and pumpkins is genuinely tight, and getting seeds in the ground the first week of June is non-negotiable. The reason this matters beyond just harvest timing is what happens to the squash itself. Winter squash varieties like Waltham butternut, delicata, red curry, and Hubbard need time for the outer skin, the rind, to fully harden and cure. That curing process is what allows them to store for months at room temperature. A butternut squash that was cut short of full maturity by frost, or that did not have adequate time to cure on the vine, will rot within weeks. You need those last few weeks of warm fall weather, ideally in September and early October, for the skins to toughen completely. You only get those weeks if you plant it in June. For pumpkins, Connecticut Field is the classic carving pumpkin, maturing in 100 to 110 days. That variety needs early June planting in Zone 5 and Zone 6, no exceptions. Howden is similar at 100 to 115 days. If you want pie pumpkins with exceptional flavor, sugar pie matures in 100 days and Long Island cheese in 105 days. Smaller ornamental varieties like Baby Bear and Munchkin run shorter at around 90 to 95 days, giving you a bit more flexibility in Zones 5 and 6, but not much. For winter squash with the best storage value, Waltham butternut at 85 days is one of the best performers across Zones 4 through 9. Spaghetti squash matures in 80 to 100 days and serves as a low-carbohydrate pasta alternative that stores for months. Delicata is a personal favorite of mine. 90 days, compact vines, exceptional flavor, and it stores for 3 to 4 months easily. Now, the financial picture. Butternut squash at a grocery store runs $2 to $4 per squash. Organic sugar pumpkins run $3 to $6 each. A healthy vine will produce 3 to 5 squash, or pumpkins depending on the variety. But the real value is in the storage. A well-cured butternut squash stored at room temperature will last 3 to 6 months. You are not just saving money in October. You are building a food supply that gets you through winter. 3 healthy plants producing 4 squash each at $3 per squash is $36 of produce from $3 worth of seeds and a patch of dirt. Give winter squash and pumpkins full sun and plenty of space. These are large plants with vines that run 6 to 15 feet, depending on the variety. If space is limited, look for compact bush-type varieties like bush butternut or honey bear acorn squash. Plant seeds, front and front, 1 inch deep, 2 to 3 seeds per hill, and thin to the strongest plant. Space hills 8 to 10 feet apart for standard vine types, 4 to 5 feet for bush types. Melons, watermelons, and cantaloupes. I want to be honest with you about melons. They are not the easiest crop on this list. They are demanding. They want heat. They want space. They need consistent water during fruit development. And they will not give you a sweet, full-flavored melon unless they have had enough time and enough warmth. That said, when you get it right, A homegrown watermelon or cantaloupe is so far above anything available at a grocery store that it changes your relationship to this crop permanently. You will not go back to buying them. June is the month when growing melons finally becomes practical for most American gardeners. Before June, soil temperatures in most zones are not consistently warm enough for melon seeds to germinate reliably without rotting. Direct sow melons in June into soil that is at least 65 degrees, ideally 70 degrees or above, and they will germinate in 7 to 14 days and grow aggressively in the heat that follows. Melons are 70 to 100 days to harvest, so a June planting gives you ripe fruit in August or September, which is prime eating season. For watermelons in large garden spaces, Crimson Sweet is the standard. It produces 10 to 25 leb fruits in 85 to 90 days and is widely adapted across zones 4 through 10. Sugar Baby is the best choice for smaller gardens, producing 7 to 10 lb icebox-sized melons on more compact vines in 70 to 75 days. If you want something genuinely exceptional in flavor and appearance, Moon and Stars is an heirloom watermelon. It takes 90 to 100 days, but the flavor is outstanding, and the dark green skin with yellow speckles makes it one of the most beautiful vegetables in any garden. For cantaloupes, Hale's Best Jumbo is the classic American cantaloupe, 80 to 85 days. Exceptional fragrance and sweetness. Widely adapted, Athena is a modern disease-resistant variety that holds well after harvest, making it practical for gardeners who might not pick on exactly the right day. The financial reality of melons is straightforward. Organic cantaloupes are running $3 to $6 each at grocery stores and farm stands right now. Watermelons are anywhere from $5 to $12 for a mid-size fruit. A healthy watermelon vine produces 2 to 4 fruits. A cantaloupe vine produces 3 to 6 fruits. From a few dollars in seed costs and one garden bed, you are looking at $30 to $60 of melon equivalent. And more importantly, you are eating melons that were ripening on the vine 12 hours before you cut them open, which is a flavor experience that does not exist in any grocery store in America. Give melons full sun. They need it more than almost any other vegetable. When the fruits are sizing up and approaching maturity, some experienced growers cut back on watering slightly in the final 1 to 2 weeks to concentrate sugars. Watering heavily right up to harvest can dilute the sweetness. For cantaloupes, a ripe melon will slip off the vine with a gentle pull. This is called full slip, and it is the most reliable harvest indicator. For watermelons, look for the tendril closest to the fruit stem to turn brown and dry. That is your signal. Before we get to the final 3 crops, and these last 3 are ones that I think most gardeners in their 50s and 60s genuinely underestimate, I want to ask you something. Think about the last 3 springs. Add up what you spent at the garden center, the flats of annuals that did not come back, the tomato transplants that got disease, the bag of fertilizer you bought because the label looked convincing. For most American homeowners, that number is somewhere between $300 and $800 over 3 years. And what did you get for it? A few weeks of color, maybe a few tomatoes, and a list of things you were going to try differently next year. Hitting that subscribe button costs you nothing. 0. This channel is free. It is here every single week. The information we cover, the specific varieties, the real timing windows, the actual math on what your garden can produce is the same information that used to cost you a consultation with a landscape professional or years of expensive trial and error. Hit subscribe before you forget, and share this video right now with one person in your life who you know is out there spending money every spring on plants that keep disappointing them. Send it to them. It might be the most useful thing you do for them this gardening season. Okra. Let me tell you something about okra that applies to everything I know about gardening after 25 years. The plants that want the most heat, the most sun, and the least coddling are almost always the most rewarding. Okra is the clearest example of that principle I have ever grown. Okra is a true hot weather crop. It does not want cool nights, it does not want cloudy days, and it absolutely refuses to perform in cold soil. Plant it too early in spring, and it sits, sulks, and rots. Plant it in June when the soil is warm, the sun is intense, and the nights are staying above 60 degrees, and it launches. Germination in 5 to 7 days. Pods ready to harvest in 50 to 60 days. One of the fastest and most productive warm season crops you can grow. The varieties worth planting. Clemson spineless is the standard recommendation for good reason. It is spineless, so harvesting does not leave you covered in the fine prickles that cover other varieties. It matures in 55 days, and it performs well from Zone 5 through Zone 10. Emerald is a longer-potted, very productive variety with excellent flavor and a 58-day maturity. Burgundy is a striking red-potted variety that turns green when cooked. It matures in just 49 days, making it the fastest maturing common variety available. And it adds genuine visual interest to any garden bed. For compact spaces, Baby Bubba Hybrid grows only 3 to 4 feet tall compared to the 6 to 8 feet of standard okra, and it produces prolifically in zones 6 through 10. The financial argument for okra is strongest in the South and in urban markets elsewhere. Fresh okra runs $3 to $5 a pound at most grocery stores and farmers' markets. A single established okra plant will produce a pound or more of pods per week at peak production. In the right conditions, zones 7 through 10, a well-situated okra plant will produce from July through October or even November. That is 16 or more weeks of production. At $3 a pound per week, one plant is worth nearly $50 over a full season. Plant 6 to 8 plants in a row, which takes about 12 to 16 linear feet, and you are looking at $300 or more in equivalent grocery store value from one section of your garden. Do that math slowly. Spacing is one of the most important decisions with okra, and most gardeners crowd it. Give plants 18 inches between them at minimum. 24 inches is better for full-sized varieties. Okra grows tall, and plants that are crowded compete aggressively for light and airflow, which reduces pod production and encourages fungal problems. Full sun is non-negotiable. Okra in partial shade produces almost nothing worth harvesting. Harvest pods when they are 3 to 4 inches long. Do not let them get larger. A pod that is 5, 6, or 7 inches long is tough, fibrous, and essentially inedible. Harvesting at the right size also signals the plant to keep producing. A pod allowed to mature fully on the plant triggers the plant to slow down pod production significantly. Check your plants every single day during peak production. In peak summer heat, okra pods can go from perfectly sized to overgrown in less than 48 hours. Carrots. Most people file carrots under spring crops and fall crops, and never consider planting them in June. That is a mistake. A June sowing of the right carrot varieties puts you in position for a late summer and early fall harvest that fills the gap between your spring carrots being finished and your fall garden coming in. Done correctly, June-planted carrots are ready in mid-August through September, which is prime harvest time in zones 4 through 7. For June sowing, Danvers 126 is your best all-purpose choice for summer planting. It is heat-tolerant, matures in 75 days, and handles heavier soils better than most. Scarlet Nantes is the classic home garden carrot, sweet, cylindrical, and excellent for fresh eating, maturing in 68 to 70 days. Corota is specifically bred for warm season production in hot climates. It is one of the most heat-tolerant carrot varieties available and produces well in zones 5 through 9 under summer conditions. For gardeners with shallow or rocky soil where growing long carrots is difficult, Chantenay Red Core is a shorter, stockier variety that performs in difficult soil conditions and matures in 70 days. The financial case for homegrown carrots is strong and steady. Organic carrots run about $2 to $3 per pound at most grocery stores. A 10-foot row of well-grown carrots will produce 8 to 12 tubs of roots at harvest. That is $24 to $36 of produce from a strip of garden less than 1 foot wide. The flavor difference between a fresh-pulled homegrown carrot and a grocery store carrot stored in a refrigerated warehouse for weeks is significant. Homegrown carrots are sweeter, more complex, and have a crispness that store carrots rarely maintain. The catch with June carrot sowing, and I am going to give you the specific technique that actually works, not the generic advice, is germination. Carrot seeds are small. They need consistent surface moisture to germinate, and the hot June sun will dry out the top half-inch of soil in a matter of hours on a clear day. Most June carrot sowings fail not because the timing is wrong, but because the seeds dry out before they can germinate. The solution is microclimate management, which I am going to cover in detail in just a moment. Prepare the soil deeply before anything else. Loosen it 12 to 14 inches down, if possible. Carrots fork and deform in compacted soil, hard clods, or in soil with rocks. Sow seeds very shallowly, 1/4 inch deep, no deeper. Then thin to 1 and 1/2 to 2 inches between seedlings. I understand the reluctance. You grew them. You do not want to pull them out. But crowded carrots produce small, deformed roots with poor flavor. Proper thinning is what turns a mediocre carrot planting into a beautiful harvest. Do it. The thinnings are edible greens, so nothing is wasted. Beets. Beets are one of the most genuinely efficient vegetables in the entire garden, and I think they deserve far more attention than they get from American home gardeners. Here is why I call them efficient. When you grow beets, you get 2 crops from 1 plant. The greens which emerge first are edible, nutritious, and delicious cooked, like Swiss chard or spinach. The roots follow, and they are one of the most versatile and flavorful vegetables you can pull from a summer garden. 1 row of beets gives you greens for weeks and roots at the end of the season. No other root crop offers that double return. June direct sowing gives you beets ready to harvest by late summer. In zones 3 through 5, where the growing season is shorter and fall frosts arrive earlier, a June sowing positions your beet harvest perfectly in September and October, just as temperatures cool down. Beets actually develop their best flavor and sweetness when the roots are maturing. In cooling fall temperatures, the cool nights trigger sugar development in the root, and a beet harvested in September from a June planting is sweeter and more complex than one harvested in midsummer heat. The varieties. Detroit Dark Red is the classic American beet. Reliable, productive, matures in 58 to 65 days, and available everywhere. Chioggia is an heirloom Italian beet with striking red and white concentric rings. It matures in 54 days and is one of the mildest flavored beets, which makes it more approachable for family members who claim they do not like beets. Golden beet varieties like Touchstone Gold mature in 55 days, do not bleed purple dye all over everything when you cut them, and have a sweeter, milder flavor than red beets. Cylindra is a long cylindrical variety that produces uniform, easy-to-slice roots and matures in 60 days, making it excellent for pickling. These all perform across zones 3 through 9. Fresh organic beets run $3 to $4 a bunch, typically 3 to 4 medium roots per bunch. A 10-foot row of beets will produce 30 to 40 roots at harvest, which translates to 10 to 14 bunches, or $30 to $56 in grocery store equivalent value. Add the value of the greens. Baby beet greens at specialty grocery stores run $4 to $6 per small bunch. And the total yield from that 10-foot row represents real, meaningful money. 2 crops, 1 seed packet. Plant beet seeds half an inch deep every 2 to 3 inches in the row. One thing most gardeners do not know about beet seeds: they are actually seed clusters, meaning each one contains 2 to 4 true seeds packed together. That is why you will almost always see multiple seedlings emerging from each planting spot, thin to 3 to 4 inches between plants after germination. Yes, you will be pulling up tiny seedlings that look perfectly good. Do it anyway. Crowded beets produce small, misshapen roots. The thinnings are edible greens, so nothing is wasted. Zones 3 through 5. June 1st through June 15th is your ideal window for a September to October harvest. Zones 6 through 8. You have until the end of June. Zone 9 gardeners should note that beets struggle in extreme summer heat. If your temperatures regularly hit upper 90s, sow beets in a location that gets afternoon shade or wait until August for a fall planting. Now, before I send you out to the garden, I want to address something directly, because it is the #1 reason June sowings fail, and it affects every single crop on this list. All 9 of these are direct sow crops. That is the correct approach. But June soil in much of America presents a real germination challenge that you need to understand and plan for, or you are going to lose seeds and waste time. The issue is heat and moisture. Hot June sun, particularly in the south, in the desert southwest, and anywhere with regular 90-degree weather days, dries out the top inch of soil within hours of watering. Most vegetable seeds need consistent surface moisture to germinate. If that surface dries out during the critical germination window, the seeds either die or go dormant. This is why you will sometimes hear someone say they tried planting beans in June and got 0 germination. They were not doing anything fundamentally wrong. They just did not solve the moisture retention problem. The first and most important tool is thorough pre-sowing irrigation. Before you put any seeds in the ground in June, water the bed deeply the day before planting. You want the soil moist 6 to 8 inches down. Then plant your seeds. Then water gently again to settle the surface. Starting with deeply moist soil gives you a reservoir that holds surface conditions stable far longer than starting with dry soil. This one step costs you nothing and makes an enormous difference. For slow germinating seeds, carrots especially, but also beets in hot weather, use surface covering during the germination period. Lay a thin burlap cloth, a layer of damp cardboard, or a piece of floating row cover directly over the seeded area. This shading reduces the soil surface temperature by as much as 6 to 10 hours during midday peak heat and dramatically slows evaporative moisture loss. Lift a corner and check daily. The moment you see green tips pushing through the soil, remove the cover completely. Seedlings under a dark cover will etiolate. They stretch desperately toward light and become weak within 1 to 2 days if the cover is not removed promptly. Do not leave it on and forget about it. Shade netting is one of the most underused tools in the American home garden, and I want to see more gardeners using it. A 30 to 50% shade cloth stretched over wire hoops above a newly seeded bed reduces soil surface temperatures measurably during peak midday sun. This is not coddling your plants. This is creating a microclimate that mimics the conditions these seeds evolved to germinate in. Filtered canopy light, moderate soil temperature, retained moisture. As soon as your seedlings are an inch or 2 tall and established, remove the shade cloth and let them have full sun. Compost and mulch play a critical role in June germination success. Work 2 to 3 inches of finished compost into the top 6 inches of your planting bed before sowing. Compost dramatically improves the water-holding capacity of soil, both clay soils and sandy soils. After germination, apply 1 to 2 inches of straw mulch around your seedlings, not on top of them, around them. Straw mulch reflects a portion of solar radiation and keeps the root zone significantly cooler than bare soil. Some trials have shown this can hold root zone temperatures below 80°C even when air temperatures are significantly higher, which is critical for root crops like carrots and beets. Covering seeds with a thin layer of vermiculite also produces consistently fast germination rates and is worth keeping a bag of on hand for your root crops specifically. One final technique, and this applies directly to okra on today's list. Some heat-loving plants have extremely hard seed coats that can slow germination significantly. To overcome this with okra, soak the seeds in warm water for 8 to 12 hours before sowing. Place them in a small bowl of water at room temperature the night before you plan to plant. By morning, the seed coat has softened, absorbed initial moisture, and germination will happen significantly faster and more uniformly than from dry seeds. This one step takes 30 seconds and can reduce your germination time from 10 to 14 days down to 5 to 7 days in warm June soil. Beets benefit from a shorter 2 to 4 hour soak as well. None of this is complicated. It is the kind of practical technique that makes the difference between a successful June planting and a frustrating one. And it is the kind of thing that nobody at a garden center is ever going to take the time to tell you. Now, let me bring this together for you because I do not want you to walk away from this video with a list and no plan. You have 9 crops in front of you. Each one is direct sow. Each one belongs in June soil. Each one will produce a real, tangible, financially significant harvest by late summer and fall. And every single one of them becomes harder, and in some cases impossible to grow from seed for this season the longer you wait. Here is what I want you to do before the end of this week. Pick 3, just 3 from this list. Not all 9. Pick 3 that match your space, your zone, and your cooking habits. If you have room in full sun, make one of them winter squash or pumpkins, because the window for those is closing fastest. If you are in Zone 7 or warmer, and you have never grown okra, make that one of your 3. If you have a 10-foot stretch of bare bed and absolutely nothing in it, plant beans. You will have them on your table in 50 days. You do not want to be the person who finds this channel 6 months from now and wishes they had subscribed and acted today. The gardeners who watch this video and put seeds in the ground this week are already ahead of where you will be if you wait. That is not a scare tactic. That is the reality of a seasonal window, and this one is open right now. You are not going to be the person who watches this in September and thinks, "I knew I should have planted those in June." You are going to be the person who walks into their garden in August with a harvest basket that proves they understood the timing and acted on it. Do not wait until you feel completely ready. You are ready right now. The seeds are available. The soil is warm. The window is open. Drop your USDA zone in the comments below. I read every single one. Tell me which 3 crops you are planting this week. And if you have a friend or neighbor who has been frustrated with their garden this year, send this video to them right now. This is the kind of information that changes how people garden, not for one season, but permanently. If you are not subscribed yet, I genuinely want to understand why. This channel is free. It is here every week. It is built specifically for gardeners who want real information, real numbers, and real results, not beautiful photographs and vague advice. Subscribe and come back next week. There is a lot more ahead. Now go plant something. If this guide changes the way you look at the potential of your summer garden, please subscribe and like the channel. We are unearthing the agricultural wisdom that often gets buried under marketing. Plant your future today. The next harvest of knowledge will open soon.